everybody, welcome back to another Woodruff cast. These just keep popping out spontaneously. I don't know when they will stop, but while the river is flowing, jump in it. Um, Today, I have a fun show. We're doing a Neptune theme with Neptune and fashion. And my guest today will be astrologer Dabney Lawless from Lawless Astrology. When when Dabney first got in touch with me, I don't know, a couple months ago, she said, "Hi, I'd love to have you come on my YouTube channel." And when I saw that it was called Lawless Astrology, I was like, "Fuck, this is such a great fit for me." And then I found out later that that's her last name. Uh, Da Dabney is an evolutionary astrologer, and she works with private clients, and she just released a new course on astrology for beginners. So I'll have all those links below, and you can explore more of Dabney Lawless for yourself. Okay, everybody, please welcome my guest today as we dive into the Met Gala through the lens of Neptune, through the signs, my friend astrologer Dabney Lawless. So, Dabney, thanks so much for joining me today for this extravaganza into the world of Neptune and fashion. And you, when we talked the other day, I just loved how you had tuned right into the Met Gala and then went in a deep dive there to kind of look at the different themes that were corresponding to Neptune's passage through each sign.
Yeah, so when I do readings, so much of what I was taught about Neptune had to do with spirituality and, kind of your connection with the universe. But as I've been digging in more and more over the last year, I've just realized how much it has to do with sort of, the zeitgeist and movies and how we kind of project into society. Like we project what's going on inside of us out into society. And so then like this Met Gala happened and I had kind of a flashback to the Met Gala in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces versus Neptune in Aries, and they just had such a different feel. And I just kind of wanted to riff on that. And you seemed like a fun person to riff on it with.
Definitely. I mean, I work with Corridor Fashion out of New York with Dan Snyder's men's line.
And
So
you
I,
do something with fashion, but I've got to be honest, I don't know exactly what you do.
well, I have been working with Dan for years doing their astrology thing for their website. And
Okay.
I love it because I get paid in his clothing. So, in fact, this is one of Dan's shirts.
It's very
Um,
handsome.
but before we start, I want to remind everybody about a fabulous book that came out, I think, about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Liz Green's book on Neptune. This is literally like War and Peace size, which only Liz Green could do on one planet. And I mean, talk about a deep dive on Neptune. She has a whole chapter in there. It's called Neptune and Glamour. And she articulates, which I'm going to read some of it now because it just nails so much of what we're gonna head into today. I want to read a little bit about her take on Neptune fashion from that one chapter on glamour. So Liz says fashion, like Neptune's waters, is forever in flux. It's virtually impossible to predict fashion, for it is made of the stuff of dreams and can vanish as magically as it appeared, giving way to another equally inexplicable fashion. And she goes on in there to talk about the impossibility of tracking it and the strange way that suddenly like you've talked about, the entire culture will kind of gel around a longing or a vision or a dream. And then everything that comes out with music, cinema, hairstyles, makeup, it's all some iteration of that. And that's that Neptunian kind of coloring, I guess you could call it. Do you want to bring up, because Dabney did a great, like, kind of PowerPoint uh, illustration of what we're going to talk about. Well, should we start with um, Anna Wintour? Like,
Yeah, let's first kind of get at the elephant out of the room that you and I were both talking about, which is we have a love-hate with the Met Gala. Because especially right now, when there's just so much going on in the world and there seems to be a lot of people suffering, here's this kind of like over the top event
for the
where
elites, you could
the
say it's
elite that's
definitely
incredibly indulgent.
right.
This is, I just want to kind of give a little background on the Met Gala was that it was founded when Neptune was in Libra. And when it was founded, it was just another one of these kind of fundraisers for rich people that was for New York Society for the Costume Institute.
Mm,
So it was basically just kind of like this fun ball for New York high society. So very Neptune and Libra, like a fundraiser, high society. And it kind of stayed in that realm. It wasn't a big thing until Anna Wintour took it over in 1995 when Neptune was in Capricorn.
mm,
And so, if Libra is much more about, Libra definitely correlates to like high society, smaller groups, we're trying to do well, charity. Capricorn is much more, kind of taking it to the next level. Like there's something ambitious about it. And so when I kind of put out there, what was her intention with the revamping of it in 1995, and it said it was to make it a more exclusive and media savvy affair, inviting major designers, celebrities, and public figures, and to position fashion as fine art. And it was kind of online with culture of like the New York museum scene. So here
hmm.
she's kind of trying to build a foundation and elevate fashion into something that it maybe had not been until that time, like really giving it this kind of status. So I thought that that was really interesting. It still benefits the Costume Institute, but I think it also benefits Anna Wintour,
Of
who is
course.
the head, of Vogue. She's the editor in chief of Vogue. She was the person that The Devil Wears Prada, the Meryl Streep character, was based off of. So
Right.
I just think it's kind of interesting. She, kind of took it to this level of like, no, this is going to be the thing of the year. And it's not just going to be a few people in New York society. It's going to be, kind of known worldwide.
Yes. And I think, as a true Scorpio, she moved her way. I mean, she's now the head of, I think, all of Condé Nast now, not
Yeah.
just Vogue. So she's at the very pinnacle of all that. I think I've got that fact right.
Yeah,
Um,
she's quite an ambitious woman and she's just quite a presence, right? Like, I mean, the inspiration for that, for a movie character.
oh, and that's such a fun film. I think Meryl Streep just tore that up. That was amazing. But I think too, well, I mean, just speaking of Anna, I mean, if you look at her visually, the dark glasses, even the same hairstyle, which is they're both very Scorpio to me because they're kind of hiding,
Yeah.
that helmet do, and then the gigantic dark glasses. It's kind of like whenever I see her without the glasses, I'm actually like shocked out of my mind because you're seeing her face, like the
Right, right. She's
Scorpio
one of those
revealed.
people who created an iconic look, and it's hard to see her in any other light. Like, what would Anna Wintour look like just like coming out of the shower with like a towel on? Like, that would be so bizarre.
Exactly. Which Devil Wears Prada tried to show us a version of that, if you remember, when she was kind of having her breakdown. But to your point about both of us having sort of this 50-50, reaction to the Met Gala. And like I told you yesterday, I'm completely torn about it because one part of me is kind of repulsed And then the other part that does love fashion and what it can convey is totally hooked into it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think
So,
for the purposes of this conversation, I think looking at it more from an astrological standpoint, looking at how the astrology impacts our collective viewpoint of something, our style, how we carry ourselves, what we're interested in,
mhm.
the themes of the day are. And this is just one illustration of that. So it's kind of not really our endorsement necessarily of this gala, more than just an interesting observation.
It is, yeah. I think that's thank you for making that disclaimer.
Did you want to look at
Presentation.
Anna's chart first while
Oh,
we're
let me
talking?
bring that up. My God. What strikes you right away here in this chart is and as far as what we know about her, character, career, style.
Okay, so one, of course, we just talked about the Scorpio. So very intense figure, someone that you don't want to cross, someone who can kind of see beneath the veil. She's a pretty powerful woman. There's no doubt about that.
Well, and plus the Sun Pluto square, I think it puts that Scorpio sun on steroids,
Right.
definitely.
Right. And so for me, as an evolutionary astrologer, the first thing I always look at is the North and South Node. And her South Node is in Libra conjunct what else? Neptune.
Neptune, perfect.
So here is somebody who came in with an incredible sense of fashion and style and beauty and imagination. So this is something that she has not just done in this lifetime from an evolutionary standpoint. This is something she knows inside and out. And so this is the gifts that she's brought in.
And then
What
go ahead.
Well, and so in her North Node is she needs to channel that in an Aries fashion. So, kind of being the center of attention and being a leader and being somebody who, kind of wears her heart on her sleeve, but in kind of like a warrior fashion. And in some ways that hair helmet kind of really gives
My
me
God.
that
Right.
sense of that Aries warrior energy. So, there is kind of something about how she channeled this imagination and her relationships with other people into becoming kind of this queen.
Absolutely. And then look too at the bowl pattern here of her chart because all of the focus lands on the singleton of the moon and Aries and the North Node.
Right. And
Because,
she has a reputation for not being the friendliest person. Right. So, and as an Aries North Node and someone with an Aries moon, that would fit, right? So here's this sun in Scorpio. So she's an intense person. She really can hone in on your weaknesses. And the Aries, but this is kind of what she's here to do. It's kind of the iconic, like moving away from just delusion and feminine energy and like people pleasing. And it's like, no, I've got a vision. I want to
yes.
channel that vision.
And then, well, and the Venus opposition to Uranus, that I think is part of that sting, Scorpio sting with her with relationships and forming them, dropping them suddenly, shocking people, that are close to her, because that is not, that is not like the warmest Venus, Venus and Sag, the Uranus contact. This is a woman, out on her own, on her own like feminine odyssey that
She's on a
is a
mission.
trailblazer.
Trailblazer. Yeah, and that's that Venus, which Venus, is about love and it's about relationships, but it's also about beauty and fashion. And having it in Sagittarius, she has a vision. There's a vision there. That's like, no one can stop her. She has an opinion. Like in The Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep gives this, and I know Meryl Streep is not Anna Wintour, but I think that the sort of the character based on it, there was this diatribe she gives, Anne Hathaway, about how, fashion is not just this silly throwaway thing. And you think you're wearing blue when you pick it up off the rack, but that started way back on the runway of Paris, like 3 years earlier. And so I think there is this kind of like forward momentum, like this is important, like this is, I'm going to be somebody who is the arbiter of what is stylish.
Well, exactly. And this is something Liz Green brings up in the Neptune book. She says fashion is frequently the subject of mockery, which of course we saw Anne Hathaway do, sniggering at them, picking out the blue cerulean belt in that scene. Fashion is frequently the subject of mockery, particularly by those who feel impelled to forcibly assert individuality in the face of the collective. Yet, individualism can itself be fashionable, which many individualists fail to appreciate. That's a great touche there.
And look at that. Her Venus is opposing Uranus.
Exactly.
So, there is this kind of like individualism. The other thing that stands out to me, I wish we had the birth time. So, this, we don't have the exact birth time. So, the houses are not necessarily correct.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if I'm looking at a Capricorn rising, but we don't have any way of knowing. But the Saturn and the Mars both being in Virgo speak to her ability to get things done. Like she's a hard worker. She pays attention to details. She can kind of pull off these miraculous feats and these events
Mm-hmm.
the way that no one else can, probably by being incredibly exacting and very picky and wanting to boss everybody around.
Well, and I would add to that, I'm sorry, Mars, Saturn, Virgo. I think that whenever I see Saturn like in a mutable sign, I see some kind of connection to communication, publishing, dissemination, where the person is involved in whatever their life path is, putting it out there in a way that is either information, data, knowledge. In her case, knowledge of trends, fashion, all of that. And then that beautiful trine to Jupiter there makes her, it's just like the quintessential executive woman's chart that, to your point, comes from this background of having been kind of in that Neptunian puddle that the Neptune in Libra represents, where you're getting along with everybody, you've lost your individuality, everyone's getting, along, peace, love, understanding. And then there's that Aries moon with the North Node, like, fuck it, I'm going my own way in this lifetime.
Yeah, and Libra can be somewhat misunderstood too. And like Libras know how to get their way. So
Cardinal
even
sign, that's
yeah.
true.
I think like they're very strategic in their alliances. And so Neptune wouldn't necessarily indicate strategic alliances per se, but I think the charm, the fact that, she got where she got probably in a lot of ways through her relationships, through her charm, through her ability to envision something bigger than what other people saw.
Hmm. Yeah, they say, I don't know who they are, but it's a great line that Libras are Aries that have gone to charm school.
Oh, I've
So,
never heard that, but I do like that. I like that a lot.
well, and you and I as Cancers, we know about, there's the idea of the soft Cancer underbelly, but my God, when they get going, that cardinal energy.
Right,
Oops.
right. We're here to get things done for sure. So there's wind at her back to kind of come out as this sort of regal queen that established this gala that has been a part of society for
Well,
the past decade.
let's go to your the great presentation you put together starting, I think it was with Neptune and
In
when it
Aquarius.
and that was after she had taken over because she took over with Neptune and Capricorn.
She did. So it had been around for a little while. So I just started looking at this. Can you see it okay,
Yeah,
Frederick?
it's great.
The theme is maybe not as literal because it's camp notes, meaning like something campy, something sort of unexpected, different, like fun. But I remembered this being the most iconic dress from that year. And of course, Kim Kardashian, another person who has her finger on the pulse of fashion and where society wants to see themselves for better or for worse.
Mm. I mean,
And
this is actually this would be more like Piscean nightmare from my reaction to this Kim Kardashian moment, right?
yeah. So what she's embodying here is like kind of like from an old 1950s or 1960s movie, like a siren walking out of the ocean. That's
Oh,
that's what
okay.
she's supposed to be doing. Like, and all of these little crystals are water droplets, and her hair
Ooh.
is supposed to look wet. So it really, she's supposed to be kind of this siren goddess that has just sort of walked out of the water.
Oh, so this is a riff on Elizabeth Taylor, who was a Pisces coming out of the water in suddenly last summer. Yes.
Probably.
Now I'm starting to connect the dots here. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this was the only dress I remembered from that year.
Yeah, well,
So
it'd be
that's where
hard
it
to,
sort of, yeah, like it
to
was that sort of Piscean, like Kim Kardashian. I think she captured it with this one. I would say she is not captured in other years, but that's another story. Okay, so the final year, which was last year, we have Zendaya representing Neptune and Pisces when the theme was Sleeping Beauty, reawakening
hello,
passion.
another great Piscean fairy tale riff, Sleeping Beauty.
Right. Fairy tales are Neptunian. Sleeping is Neptunian. This wouldn't work with the Neptune and Aquarius.
No, and what's going on with Zendaya here? How do you interpret this particular ensemble? Like
So to me, it's kind of got that very fairy tale feel. But it does have a little bit of a kind of a dark fairy
it,
tale.
yeah,
But then she has in her head like the just the imagination coming up, like it's almost like the flowers of the dream, and like she's waking up with all these flowers.
well, and it looks like a fish,
Oh,
right?
oh my
So
God,
this,
so perfect. Yes.
yeah, that's coming
Yeah.
alive. And there's like a Disney-esque villainous, like Cruella or what's her name?
Maleficent. Yeah.
Yes, that with that top piece, kind of a, is it a bustier that's a jacket or
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
very interesting? And then but the black, right? Very interesting. Great piece to pick for this particular. I think Zendaya, whenever I see her in the Met, she really nails stuff instead of, some of it gets too nuts for me with
Right. Some
folks.
of it's really unattractive.
Yeah, and she maintains a level of beauty and yet brings an edge too with it.
Okay. So really want you to look at this and think about Neptune and Pisces, where we've kind of come from. And then April 30th, Neptune went into Aries.
Aries.
Okay. This is the same person. Suddenly, it's like overnight, we have a different energy.
And very masculine, Aryan, male, Martian, the
Right.
cut suits. Now,
Right.
talk about this super fine tailoring black style. Is this a relation, is a reaction to MAGA with them shutting down DEI or and all their basic racist bullshit? Like, how do you see this calling up the black history of with fashion?
Absolutely. So I actually like pulled a quote, but this year's theme celebrated Black style and the history of dandyism. The accompanying dress code was tailored for you, encouraging guests to interpret menswear and tailoring with their own personal style. The exhibition explored how clothing and style have been used in the Black diaspora to
Hmm.
define identity, assimilation, distinction, and resistance, according to Vogue. So Anna Winter does, so here's the theme again: super fine tailoring Black style. She doesn't do super in your face political statements, they're very subtle. And so I think with this one, there is this thing about celebrating men, like menswear.
Yep.
It is also about celebrating the dignity of Black fashion and how in the face, like historically, so this is kind of going back to post-Civil War era, when people, fashion for African Americans began to be a statement. And it was a statement of, you know, you're not going to keep me down. This is how I'm going to express myself. This is who, you know, this is me.
Right.
And that's very Aries too. This is me. I'm going to express who I am authentically. And the dandyism is like dignity. It's like, I'm going to do this in a very sophisticated way, and it's going to have my own spin on it.
Right.
So I think that that's sort of what this is saying from my point of view.
Yeah, I think that's a great take on it for sure.
Yeah. And so now you start to see, you know, here are some of the looks that I thought were very Neptune and Aries. Like I think they got the assignment.
So, but that was fantastic. Thank you for putting that together like
Oh,
that.
no problem.
It just got my mind, my moon conjunct Neptune in my chart. I'm starting to think like, okay, how would that leap from the world of fashion, glamour, everything that connotes into other parts of the culture, like and society and politics? You know, the Neptune Aries keynote that is touching off this dream world, this longing world, this search for salvation through Aries themes. How do you see that with what we're living in now within MAGA 2.0?
So what I think is Neptune just went into Aries. It's unfolding. However, I do think I am already starting to see echoes of it. So like in the fashion world, if you're interested in fashion, like I kind of pulled out a shirt that I thought, you know, bright jewel tones, big shoulder pads. I think that Aries is the warrior. Aries is more of a masculine sign. Aries is a get it done sign. And so Aries has a very pioneering spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I just read that there is a reboot of Little House on the Prairie.
Oh my God. Okay. Is that Neptune and Aries coming
I
into
think that's
TV and
Neptune in there
streaming? What?
because I think there's this sense of like, okay, we're going to have to rebuild some things. So many things fell apart in Neptune and Pisces. And then with the kicker with Saturn and Pisces coming with the full on wrecking ball, right?
Right.
Like everything's been demolished in so many ways, things that we've come to rely on. So now there's this kind of new building. There's
Well,
a
and
rebuilding and a
pioneering, isn't that
pioneering.
show about
The
pioneers?
pioneers, yeah, that went out west to find their lives, like to settle the country. So
Right.
I think there is something about, you know, really staking your claim. And so I think we're going to see that in new cultural mediums. I think we're going to have not only new fashion, but I think we're going to have new music. I think the music has been very assimilated.
Yeah.
It's very overly produced. So we may see a new version of punk rock or like just rock, like harder edges in music.
Well, I think on that note, musically, I would hope indicates people, first of all, learning how to fucking play instruments again. Like, right? Like, because as Neptune went through Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, the machines came in more and more and more. And then you got this amalgam of everything kind of sounding the same because of
Right.
GarageBand and then you know. So I'm hoping people are burned out on that and start learning how to play instruments and return, you know, to that world
There could be
with the
more of
music.
that sort of, and I do think that even in Aquarius, so Neptune traveling through Aquarius and Pisces, both of those were very machine oriented or industry oriented. They were
Right.
not individually oriented. So when you look back, you may not be a fan of Taylor Swift, but she's one of the only people that I can think of that emerged as, kind of, Beyonce, I guess, as well. But there are very few kind of people who emerged as authentic talents in themselves. Like most of it became much more like homogenized and synthesized. And
Hmm.
like you said, like everything starts to sound the same.
Which is very, especially Neptune and Pisces over the last 15 years, with all the retreads, the remakes, and then music. The thing that's fascinating to me about Taylor Swift, and I don't really dislike her vehemently, but I think I'm just oversaturated with her.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
But
we're not the demographic either. We have to remember that.
well, I am because I was started as a music journalist, so I'm on Spotify every Friday for 2 hours listening to everything that's come out. In fact, I'll put my new playlist down for
Wow.
everybody because it's such a good mix of old and new. But what did you make of Taylor Swift's? Have you ever studied her chart? Well, it's all Capricorn, 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 Sag.
Oh,
And so what blew my mind about her, and we'll get back on track here, but I found it so fascinating for people into Pluto and the cliches that we hear about Pluto being so devastating, transformative, you are killed and born again. As soon as Pluto got into Capricorn, started hitting each of her planets there. And each pass of Pluto, she got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it's another way to interpret Pluto as larger than lifeness, or Pluto takes everything down to like the atomic. So big becomes small, small becomes big with Pluto. And Taylor Swift is such a great example of that if you study her chart. Check it out sometime. It's just like, how did this girl get through these fucking transits? Like, whoa.
yeah. And
She
she
came to
did.
me as a client, say when Pluto was leaving Sag, I'd be like, honey, strap yourself in. So she's managed all that well. Having all that Capricorn, I guess, gave her that skill set or something.
I also think when Neptune was in Aquarius, there was a lot more of a gender bending style that was emerging. And
Totally.
I think then it also was kind of this fluid style. It became more, it was in Aquarius, it was more gender bending. And
Hmm.
then it was just more fluid. Like I can be this and I can be that. Like like Miley Cyrus saying she's bisexual and now she's not. And, there was kind of this like pansexuality. Like there was all this sort of fluidity. I think we are going to have a little bit more of a return to the rigid, like, but I do think the gender bending might be like a more militant female energy.
Mm,
But I think it's going to be more militant across the board. Like I think
interesting.
it's more of like a survivalist, like Mad Max kind of energy
Huh.
that we might see. I think we're also going to see less of the apocalyptic films that they're like I'm sorry, but for the past 10 years, like so much apocalypse.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know how many of us are like, I'm done with The Last of Us. I'm done with anything like where I'm alone.
Zombies were huge. Yeah,
Zombies.
zombies. Yeah.
Right. And I do think that was a Piscean nightmare. That was kind of
Hmm.
projecting our fears into the
Hmm.
future. So I think there's more of there will be more of like a fighting, optimistic, building, like celebratory feel in the movies. And some of it might even be propaganda. So I do feel that propaganda may be coming to justify some of the terrible things that are happening in the world.
Yeah.
That's also Neptune in Aries.
What fascinates me with the theme of androgyny with the Neptune and Aquarius was, of course, now Pluto's there. And I think this is something I learned from Michael Luton. He said, whenever Pluto gets into a sign, and he was writing this right when Pluto went into Capricorn, he said everything in the collective and in the culture, politically, socio-politically, everything tries to clamp down because it senses what is about to kind of start erupting. And I think this is part of with MAGA version 2.0, where we're actually seeing this clamping down again. Because, now it's like we're getting rid of pronouns, we're getting rid of DEI, we're getting all this stuff. And it really means that all of that stuff is going to be coming back up online with Pluto and Aquarius, right? Because I think by that point, people regarding their sexuality, I do think androgyny will just become like commonplace, and that people won't care about, well, they don't want me doing pronouns or whatever. Well, fuck you. I'm a they, and that's fine, and I'm just moving on with my life. And then racial equality, very Aquarian theme. I think all that is primed to come back. We're just seeing all the shit connected with it being pushed up with the same MAGAites and the clampdown against that. Just like Michael said, they try to hold it down. This thing's ready to erupt. So
That's
that's,
exactly it. That's part of what I think is like,
yeah.
I think we're seeing the last vestiges of the like assimilate. I can't take this. It's too much. Like, kind of push it down, but it's not popular. It's not what people actually want, and so the extremes that they're going to, I believe there's a giant snapback. And I
Hmm.
think that people, as I already saw it, this major empowerment of people who I would call more progressive, myself included, when Neptune went into Aries. Like suddenly you had like Bernie and AOC drawing crowds of tens of thousands of people.
Hmm.
And the more progressive ideas about, kind of eat the rich and like, anti-billionaire sentiment, all of that is new. It is really not something that has been in the collective in your face. And everything that they've been doing is just pushing it into their face. It's pushing it
Right,
into everyone's face. And
right.
so I think it gives it power. And so I think that's part of what's coming, especially when Saturn moves into Aries. Then we have the structure around this, kind of fighting back.
Yeah, that'll be refreshing. I keep saying I'm waiting for the adult to get in the room with Saturn hitting, into Aries and making that great conjunction next year with Neptune. I
I
think,
mean, all you have to do is listen to like one of He Who Shall Not Be Named's press conferences, and like it is a Neptunian nightmare. Like you don't understand the
mhm,
word salad that was just thrown at you.
mhm.
And so I do think that like there is going to be just like thinking about like things coming back to the point, like clearing the fog, less confusion. Like we have got a point. So the difference between Sleeping Beauty's outfit and, even if it is Maleficent with some beautiful flowers in her hair, like now she is on point with her white suit. Like she means business. It's
Yeah,
different
great, great point. Great way to wrap this up to bring that back to Zendaya. Let's go, girl.
energy.
Hey, Dabney, thank you so much for joining me today. I always love connecting up with you.
Thank you
Um,
for having me, Frederick. I'm so glad that we did connect. So shout out
yeah,
to my friend who connected us,
yeah, I'm really digging it and loving it. And we'll do more because there's always more people
as
because the
always.
planets keep on turning and spinning. Check out Dabney's YouTube channel. All of her links are below. She's got a great beginner's astrology course. I've got the link to that as well. And Dabney, I'll probably see you on your channel next time.
I love it. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thanks. Nice to meet
Thanks
y'all.
again.
Bye.
Bye.